Somewhere along your awakening, maybe after a big spiritual insight or a personal collapse, something shifted. You saw the illusion, the patterns, the noise, and then the quiet. At first it was powerful, even empowering.
But slowly, meaning thinned out. Not overnight, quietly, like your soul turned life's volume down and forgot to turn it back up. You stopped chasing, you stopped caring, not recklessly, just with that soft, existential sigh. And the question began to whisper louder. Why do I feel numb now that I finally see the truth? Here's the paradox. We expect awakening to ignite us, but for so many deep feelers, empaths, seekers, it can do the opposite. It empties us. I remember a friend, brilliant and spiritually attuned, devouring all the right books, Eckhart Tolle, Alan Watts, Krishnamurti. After a dark night of the soul, she got it. She saw through identity, ego, the chase for external success. 2 months later, she was staring at the ceiling, barely getting out of bed. I used to cry about not achieving enough, she told me. Now I don't care if I do anything at all. Thought awakening would light me up, not leave me like this. Carl Jung hinted at this post-awakening fog. He didn't use trendy language, but he understood what happens when the unconscious becomes conscious. Enlightenment doesn't come by imagining figures of light, he wrote, but by making the darkness conscious. Beautiful, until you realize what it implies. Awakening isn't an ending. It's the beginning of a psychological death. The death of who you thought you were. The structures that gave life meaning. Goals, careers, relationships, even your sense of time start to collapse. Here's the catch. The ego isn't gone. It's confused. It lost its map. And without a new map, motivation fades. So it's not that you're simply depressed or lazy. You're in limbo. You've woken up from something, but not yet into something. This is where it gets fascinating and wildly misunderstood. What you're feeling isn't failure. It's not necessarily clinical depression or anxiety. It's something ancient and sacred. Jung warned that our modern world avoids this phase at all costs. The sacred pause, the void, the in-between. He believed it's essential for individuation, the process of becoming your authentic self. But almost no one tells you about this part, do they? That's what we're going to unpack. What's happening in your psyche after awakening, and how this loss of motivation can be the biggest spiritual upgrade of your life if you understand it. Before we continue, if you love expanding your mind and exploring the deeper layers of life, subscribe to Fractal Wisdom. We make the invisible visible and support those navigating the weird and wonderful path of awakening. So if you've been drifting in that post-awakening fog, wondering where your spark went, no, you're not crazy. You're moving through a shift most people can't name. A change so deep, it doesn't just tweak your thoughts, it rewrites your operating system. The goals, the to-do lists, the 5-year plans, the hustle playlists, they don't move you anymore. Not because you're failing, but because the very engine that powered them is being rebuilt. And Jung saw this coming long before it trended online. For most of your life, motivation flowed from the ego, the me you thought you were. Prove yourself, be seen, be successful, be loved. Nothing wrong with that. It's a stage of development. Jung called the social mask the persona. Awakening strips the mask. Suddenly, you're not trying to win the game because you see the game. And then it gets strange. Without the mask, the old goals don't fit. They were tailored to a version of you that no longer exists. You're a character who stepped off stage and forgot the lines. That's why you feel unmotivated. You didn't lose drive. You outgrew the fuel. Jung taught that we're not here to serve the ego, but to integrate it, align it with something larger. He called this individuation, transforming from a fragmented identity into a unified self. Not the small self seeking praise, but the deeper center that connects to everything. That self doesn't care about status or approval, it cares about truth. After awakening, your psyche starts recalibrating. It rejects what's fake, forced, or ego-driven: jobs, relationships, ambitions, even your 2021 vision board. That's why awakening feels both freeing and disorienting. But Jung warned, if we stop here, we get stuck. Some people awaken and then spiritually bypass. Nothing matters. It's all an illusion. They float. They numb out. They confuse detachment with disengagement. The self wants something else, to live through you. It doesn't reject the world. It redefines your role in it. To step into that, you pass through a middle phase. Jung described that few recognize while they're in it. It's not glamorous. It doesn't look like meditating in Bali or posting profound quotes. It looks like sitting in silence while the world races by, unable to explain yourself. Jung would say you're not lost. You're in between. You've disidentified from ego, but haven't learned to live from the self. This is not failure. It's a rite of passage. In a hyper-productive culture, stillness gets misread as laziness, and pause as paralysis. You judge yourself, and that judgment blocks the very energy returning to you. Jung had a term for this pendulum swing: enantiodromia, things turning into their opposite. After awakening, you swing from ego-driven striving to soul-level stillness, from "I must do everything" to "why do anything?" The swing is sacred. It restores balance. Myth and wisdom call it the hermit phase, the death before rebirth. The caterpillar becomes soup in the cocoon, not a butterfly yet, no longer a bug, just goo. And goo doesn't hustle, it dissolves. The ego panics, demanding action and identity. The self whispers, "Let go. I'm building something deeper." Modern spirituality often skips this part. Follow your joy. High vibes only intention matters. Yes, but Jung would say if you skip the darkness, you skip the gold. Shadow work, facing the uncomfortable, repressed parts, isn't extra credit. It's the core curriculum. This sacred nothingness is where the unconscious finally has room to rise. You're not failing, you're metabolizing. Your psyche is wise. It will stall your drive, and even your clarity on purpose, so you're forced to feel, witness, and reclaim what you buried. That's the real work. Here's the twist. When you stop resisting the void, something new returns. Motivation comes back, but different. Not anxious, not performative, not hustle, older, quieter. A soul-led momentum that feels like remembering rather than chasing. Jung called it the emergence of the self, not as an idea, but as a living inner compass. You've walked through the void, silence, stillness, the deep pause, and now something stirs. Not lightning, not fireworks, a steady inner pull. Not to resume your old life, but to build a new one. This is the symbolic life Jung spoke of, living from deeper meaning once the ego softens and the unconscious is integrated. Life stops revolving around survival and starts orbiting significance. And here's the surprise. It's often beautifully ordinary. When the self leads, you don't hustle. You respond. You're not driven by FOMO. You're guided by alignment. You don't chase clarity, you recognize it. Living from the self won't make you perpetually amped. You'll still meet fatigue, confusion, grief, because you're human. But you won't feel that constant inner betrayal of dragging yourself through a life that doesn't fit. Instead, you find yourself creating when no one's watching, saying no to what doesn't resonate, even if it looks great on paper, following curiosity over checklists, choosing peace over performance. This is the new fuel, not adrenaline, alignment. Jung called it living symbolically, trusting inner images, dreams, synchronicities, gut feelings as guidance. What does this look like day to day? Start by asking different questions. Not, what should I do? But what's quietly calling me? Not, what's the plan? But, where is life nudging me? Not, how can I prove myself? But what feels honest? You begin to participate with life, not dominate it. Ambition doesn't vanish, it transforms into devotion to truth, presence, growth. Ironically, that energy gets more done than ego ever did. And it's sustainable. It's soul-powered. This is the self's motivation, not to impress, but to express. It often leads you to create, serve, heal, teach, build, not because you should, but because your whole being says yes. So if it feels like your spark died after awakening, it's just the old fire burning down, so a deeper flame can take its place, one that doesn't flicker when the winds change. Jung never promised an easy road. If you're here, you're already on it. It's not about recovering the old motivation, it's about discovering a new one rooted in wholeness, not performance. This isn't the end of awakening, it's the beginning of becoming. If this helped you name something you've been navigating, drop a comment. I'd love to hear your story. And for more on psychology, soul, and self-awareness that actually fits real life, subscribe to Fractal Wisdom, because awakening isn't the end of the story. It's where the real story begins.